Welcome to the Level Up Your Band podcast, episode 26. Hello, and welcome back to the Level Up Your Band podcast. My name is Gavin Patterson, and I'm here with Julian Pombo.
Hey.
How are you
How's
today?
it going?
I'm alright.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm not bad. Not bad at all. I have nothing more to report. Things are the same.
Well, you have done your
changed.
first recording session since before the end of the world.
There's that, yeah. I went in, I was recording and travelled all the way down to Dumfries, which is a nice wee drive on a Sunday morning, and then Sunday evening there was like nobody on the road.
Nice.
And yeah, and the session was really good. Recorded a bit of double bass, recorded a little bit of bass guitar, and I did a bit of tenor guitar as well.
Oh, nice.
On like 2 tracks, yeah. Just to add a little, just the ones that had some acoustic guitar in them, just to add a little bit more sparkle, you know.
Yeah.
So that was good.
It's funny, like, I haven't driven really to speak of since March. I haven't put diesel in my van since March. First week in March.
Driving's fascinating because there's no one on the roads.
Yeah,
like no one.
It's like driving in New
Sunday
Zealand or
was
something.
more dead than usual. Yeah, it is. Well, I don't know what that would be like, but I suppose it's like the closest thing to maybe driving in like I guess in like some kind of apocalypse. Just literally nobody there. You know,
I don't really. I always say I don't really enjoy driving that much, but I miss it bizarrely.
Oh, I'm a total weirdo in that I absolutely love driving. I suppose if like the whole music thing fails, I would make a pretty good taxi driver.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I've been driving since I could walk because I grew up on a farm. So yeah, it's basically if I can hold my own weight with my legs, I can drive. This is how you qualify on a farm. You're on a tractor before you can, swim. Driving's just a thing. It's just a thing that you do. It kind of like getting stuck in traffic and being stuck in the rain and stuff. I've never been a huge fan, but I'd much rather drive than be a passenger. I hate being a passenger. I'm terrible. Hate it. But yeah, I miss just like driving to gigs. So something as simple as that. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, this kind of ties in to the
it does
today.
actually.
This is an episode that we did already. We planned it ages ago, and we did it. It was like episode 6 or 7 or something, and we recorded it before lockdown. We recorded it in like February, March, and when I listened back to the audio, it was all garbled. There was something wrong with my sound card. This was when we used to do the episodes in the studio, and the sound card, for whatever reason, stuttered and stammered all the way through the episode, so it sounded like aliens talking to each other. And that is an episode on touring. And we thought there was no point in doing it through lockdown because, well, who's touring, hey? But
yeah,
I thought yesterday I might as well do it because, with lockdown lifting and stuff, people are going to start thinking about planning. And this is the kind of information you need to know before you start planning, not after. So it is quite a good time to do it. Plus, podcasts last forever, so you can listen to this anytime, and it's probably going to be relevant unless we all die. Cheery. Tuesday morning banter.
Or touring completely loses its meaning altogether.
Yeah. If we live on Mars, but we'll still tour to Mars, so So,
I suppose.
Yeah, driving long distances, that's how I tied that in. See? That was clever. Anyway, so touring mentality. Touring, I'm going to read my notes now that are 6 months old. touring, that's a thing. Touring is a thing. And it always seems like it's a long way off for bands starting out.
Yeah.
So
it seems like the kind of, for sure.
It just like when I started out, I was like 16, I think, when I joined my first band, 15, 16, 17, something like that. Proper band. Touring is something that big successful artists do, right? Wrong.
Aye.
So it was always a thing I thought that you did once you were signed and you had a manager and a label and all that money and blah, 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 blah. Later realizing that you actually don't need all that stuff. You can do it yourself. You think about touring as like being in this, big, fancy bus and hotel rooms and just hundreds of crew helping you out. And while it can be that for like the upper tiers of the music industry, there's no reason why you can't start touring now. So if you have recorded material, an EP, singles, album, and gigged, I would say more than 5 times, preferably maybe like 10 times, I would say you're ready to tour.
Because there's only so many times you can play your local venues one after the other,
Yeah.
After a while, it's going to get a bit stale, and it's kind of like, your friends are going to be like, "Oh, you're playing the 13th note again," in like 5 months in a row, like,
yeah,
dude, So, and you're going to get bored of it as well. So that's really the reason for touring.
The early days of playing in bands and stuff, when it was your 4th time playing Classic Grand to an empty crowd. The first 2 times you do it are really good, and then the 3rd and 4th, no one comes because you're playing the same set, and we saw you 6 months ago. They've seen you
already.
Yeah. So
yeah,
that is the point where you think, oh, no one's interested anymore. No, it just means that you need to get more people interested in you, and the way you do that is you go somewhere else. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It depends where you live as well. If you live in Scotland, going to other towns and cities is really inexpensive because Scotland is minuscule. It's tiny. It's a tiny little place. All the towns and cities are really, really close together and easy to get to. It's funny. I have Australian relatives, and whenever they come over, they there was one time it was like an aunt came over, and she's got her map out, and I can't do an Australian accent, so I'm not even going to bother. She's like, "Oh, today we're going to head over to Edinburgh. So we thought we'd set out maybe about 7:30. Maybe we'll get there for dinner." And I just burst out laughing. I'm like, Edinburgh's like an hour. It's like an hour's drive from Glasgow. She's like, what? I was like, yeah. Because in Australia, the nearest city is, it's a 15-hour drive, just standard. Like, the road signs there are mental. I've been to Australia, and it's like, you see a road sign, and it's like, 5 kilometres to a wee village, 75 kilometres, and then there's one in the bottom that says 2,500 kilometres to this place, and you're like, what? Like, I think from the top of Scotland to the bottom of England is, 600 miles or something? 500 miles? That's it.
Yeah.
It's teeny. From Glasgow to Edinburgh is 1 hour, and those 2 cities are humongous. It's the 2 largest cities in Scotland, and they're like an hour apart. If you live in Scotland or England or a small country, going from town to town or city to city is very inexpensive.
Really, it's very easy.
Very easy. You can do a tour of the north of Scotland in like a week. It's easy.
Yeah, you could even, if you felt really exotic, you could go over to Northern Ireland. Get on a ferry,
do some of the islands. But
hell, you can start your European tour by going to the Republic.
Yeah,
just crossing the border over. There you go.
Yep. If you live in America or Canada or some country that's bigger than here, it's a little bit.
This might not.
It's a little bit more expensive because you're talking, it's a 20-hour drive to somewhere. It's a lot of money on fuel.
And
trying to get
accommodation
gear
and things like that.
Accommodation and stuff, because you're spending more time on the road to do the same amount of gigs as you would do in Scotland, but potentially to a larger audience as well, because population densities and differences and stuff. So this we're gonna say some things on this episode that might relate to you and might not, depending on where you live and stuff. So it's like a wee caveat. Anyway,
aye.
We've got number 1 here. The first thing that you need to do before you start touring. Obviously, we're assuming you have recorded material and you have songs and you have played gigs and you have a band. That always helps. Is to start researching. So venues, whether that's pubs or clubs or church halls, if you're into that.
Theatres,
yeah, we've done a few theatres. Are really fun to do, actually. And find out, this is something that helps as well, and this is something we did, is get to know where other bands in your genre go, because if that's a good signal as to where the crowds are. When I say crowds, I mean you know what I mean. There's people in this area that have listened to this style of music before and are likely to come and listen to you if you advertise it correctly. There's no point in going to some place where you're unlikely to...
Basically, like going up to Wick or something, if you're like a black metal band or something like that.
Yeah.
You might get 3 people turn up, maybe.
I mean, there could be a black metal bar in Wick.
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure. Maybe there's like a big scene. I have no idea. I just thought I'd pick the most outrageous, faraway place as possible, most unlikely genre. So like, the best way you can do that is just ask other bands.
Yeah,
where'd you go?
Yeah, absolutely. So
where'd you recommend?
If you're depending on your genre, if you're sort of jazz orientated or folk orientated, find bands. You'll probably know people. I mean, musicians are like that. They just kind of know everybody. You know loads of people that play in different bands and genres and stuff. So you can ask around. It will become obvious the more you ask. Like, we definitely have to go to this place. Like there was a few names that came up, venues that people would talk about, and it was like, we definitely have to go there, because like virtually everyone in our genre goes there, so the chances of selling a ticket there is like vastly increased. It's difficult if you've never. It might seem difficult if you've never done it before, but it's amazing what asking a few questions, to various people can do.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, like, if it's genre dependent. Like we discovered that our music is very well suited to a theatre context, like I said earlier. It's a very sit down and listen kind of band that we are.
Rather than like let's get right up to the front and take our tops off.
We have a few tunes
get drunk.
You can do that with, but
I
mean, we've taken our stuff to festivals as well, and we tailor our set list to certain places. So if there's like a festival where everyone's standing and jumping around, we play the ones that will get people to stand up and jump around. But there's some slower, quiet, more intimate, more
thoughtful
chordal kind of things that will just go over the heads of most people in pubs and festivals. And it's still us, but it's just a little bit molded and shaped differently depending on where you're playing. So, but when you're touring, you probably shouldn't do that. You should probably just give the sort of overall picture of your band. So, I've got number 2 here. In fact, I'm going to skip one. Before approaching the venues I've written down, you should make contact with other bands in your genre. So that's what I get opinions of the venues that they have played. So when you're making that decision to pick a certain venue, ask not only what venue should we play, but what was it like to play? How are they to deal with? Because there are places that we have played that we say, oh yeah, you should play there, and then we find out when we get there that they're a nightmare to deal with. So if you can find out that kind of info beforehand, like, do it, because you can save yourself a lot of heartache,
a lot of hassle.
I mean, I'm still waiting on payments from venues that we played over a year ago. Just honestly, genuinely blow your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
So, and this is something that we took advantage of, is when you speak to someone about a particular venue, and maybe it's quite a nice venue, and they say, oh yeah, we played there last year, you should check it out, blah, blah, blah. Name drop. So get in contact with the venue, say, oh, I spoke to such and such who you had in last year. They recommended your venue. They said you were very nice and they liked you very much. We would like to play your venue too. Yeah. Like you're making a little point of contact, you know.
They'll yeah, exactly, and that'll stick in their head. They'll be like, oh, let's see, what was that band? Oh yeah, that band that we had last year.
They sold well.
Oh, cool. So, and they sold well, and if they recommend this band or like they're friends, then they must be good too.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. It's amazing how far you'll get with it's like a testimonial, I suppose. It's like, oh, someone I know has been at your venue and they really liked it. It's a compliment. Lead with a compliment.
Yeah.
Because that's the tricky part of the touring side, is actually getting the venue to agree to have you play. You have to send a lot of emails. I don't know what the succession rate is. I'd need to ask Aileen when she was booking our tours.
She does all our emails for us.
I think she mentioned it's somewhere between 10 and 20% success. So of the emails that she sends, between 10 and 20% of them turns into a booking. I would need to check that with her, but it's like maybe 50 or 60% get back to you. So not even like they don't even all get back to you. And of the ones that get back to you, maybe half or less than half actually turn into a booking. It's the same. I see the same with the studio. Like of the inquiries you get, it's if your booking rate or if your rate of going through with a booking is like 10%, you're doing well. You're doing really well. So for every 100 emails, 10 book. That's, well, for my sort of thing, that's pretty good. If you're a rehearsal studio, that's pretty damn awful. Like 100 people call your rehearsal studio and only 10 book. That's pretty dreadful. But so bear that in mind. You're going to have to do a lot of emails. We talked about that with, is it Graham or Liam? You're just I think
Graham,
it was Graham. Yeah. You're just a slave.
It's the last episode.
You're just a slave to your computer, constantly doing emails all the time.
Yeah, it's so true, man. Like you spend so much time looking at that Gmail account.
Yeah, comes embedded in your eyes. So bear in mind that there is a little bit of work in the beginning, trying to get round all the venues. So say you've got like a list of 20 venues or 30 venues. They're not all going to get back to you and they're not all going to turn into bookings. So you can over email. There's no such thing as over emailing. You just fire as many emails out as you can and try and make the schedule work after that. Especially for your first tour. Think less about the route. If you're in a small country, this is where that caveat comes in. If you live in Scotland, you can go to the top of Scotland and then back to the centre of Scotland in one day. But if you're in Central America, you can't get to New York in the morning and then LA in the afternoon. It's not unless you own a private jet. If that's the case, then what are you doing? Like, why are you? Why are you listening to this podcast? Like,
and at the same time, like we're also thank you, I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
Like and subscribe. So you've got the gig, you've got a sort of route planned, and you've thought about the travel. You've maybe drawn a line in a map and went, okay, these towns pass through each other. We can do this in a loop, or you can do it in 2 legs, where you can do a little mini loop and then another mini loop, and do them a week apart. So you've thought about all that, and trying to get that logistically sorted is difficult, which is why you're constantly emailing people back and forward. You'll eventually come up with you'll see patterns where you're asking the same questions and venues are asking the same questions of you. So you'll eventually learn quickly that you can say, right, this venue asked this, and also this venue asked this. So maybe I should just provide that off the bat to stop an extra email chain of them asking back and forward, and just speeds the process up. It's kind of a management thing.
Aye.
So, right, before you've got your tour booked and you're ready to go, well, it's a few months out or whatever, so you're going to start thinking about some things. What are you going to take? What are you going to take with you? So, depending on your set as well.
And we're not talking about toothbrushes and clothes or whatever.
That's a given.
Like we're assuming you have, the what's the word? The common sense to have already thought about that.
You heard it here first. Level up your band. Rule number 7: brush your teeth. Just brush your teeth. Okay?
Yeah, brush your teeth twice a day.
And
floss if you can as well.
Yeah, not that kind of flossing, but yeah, the teeth flossing.
For goodness sake.
Oh no. Okay. So you're 4 months out. Say, right, posters. That's a number one that venues always ask for. Oh, can we get some posters? If you have a graphic designer, or if there's a graphic designer in your band or someone who's good with that sort of stuff, get the posters done well in advance. And a common complaint that you always get is from venues is, don't send us PDFs. We don't have any ink in our printer or whatever. I would say print out the posters at home or at a printer's place and mail them out. So
yeah, you can get some pretty good deals where they'll just you can get a bunch printed in bulk for.
Well, I remember. Do you remember that time
money, I guess.
we went to a sort of trade fair thing, in the Royal Concert Hall, and we set up a stand with loads and loads of other bands for Celtic Connections, and these people,
I remember that.
all these booking agents for festivals and stuff all around Europe, were all coming around the stands. We were setting up our stall and realised that the bands all around about us all had these fancy posters. So as we were setting up, I'm jumping on my laptop at the stall, just as the place is opening, and I'm looking at all the Eriscope graphics artwork that we have, and I'm like, we need a poster. So I found a nice sort of poster looking thing and sent it to a printers and got it printed within an hour. And then Aileen ran over and grabbed it, and it was ready like that, and had it up on the wall, I think, just as people were walking in. So you can get posters really, really fast and easy and relatively inexpensive in jig time. I was really impressed with that. Don't ask me who the company was, because I can't remember. It's really useful. It's only useful if you live in Glasgow. So information. You need information from the venues. So this is the thing that venues really love. I was at a musicians union meeting talking about relationships between venues or promoters and artists. It was last year, I think, and it was a guy came up and did a talk on how he hates when bands just ghost and you don't hear from them until a day before the event, and then they're like, oh, forgot, we can't do it anymore, and how annoying that is for everyone. Is maintain a good communication with the venues after you've booked, right up until check in monthly. Hey, how you doing? How's things going? Just check in. They like that, I've been told. Also, if you're in the UK and you're gigging regularly, I recommend joining the Musicians Union. They're pretty cool. You can go to lots of free events, when coronavirus wasn't a thing. And they also do instrument insurance and public liability insurance and cover and stuff. Yeah.
And you can get like, what you call it? Like contract templates and things like that. Really, really
stuff as well.
Useful stuff. And advice, legal and all that.
Yeah. So from that, I took, again, this is a recurring theme, is communication is key. So there might be some things in their particular venue that they have policies. For example, you're doing posters for every venue. I would do them venue specific, obviously, because they're going to put up a poster on their wall. Your band coming this time. So you can have the same design for every place, but different information. So if you want to book, say, this venue, they do it via the phone, or another one does it via email or a website. The price of the ticket in this venue is this price, and the price in this venue is another price. So you have to get all that information well in advance so that the printers are posted and sent out. So it's good to have all that information beforehand and load in information, and do they have a PA system and just the usual stuff.
Which we discussed in the load-in episode, if you've not listened to that.
It basically is that episode times 10, times however many venues you're doing. So you've got to not only think about like, oh, where am I loading in, blah, 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 all this for a gig. You're doing it for every single gig on the tour. That's why touring can be a little bit like, especially if you're going to inner cities and there's time limits and stuff. Which brings me on to travel. So this comes back to band pot, or band, not that kind, the money kind, not not the narcotics. The band bank account. If you are traveling and you have designated drivers, I reckon that the band should reimburse the drivers for their petrol money, their diesel money, whatever.
Yeah.
We kind of made that decision early on that any band expenses, like going out for dinner on tour as a band, I would say if you can do it, should be paid by the band.
Yeah.
Any expenses, nobody should have to be dipping into their own pocket for things that they are doing on tour, unless they're buying something that's specifically for them.
Yeah. What about things like and alcohol, things like that? Because
nah. I mean that's that. I mean it's up to the band.
That should be your own.
Yeah. I mean, if you finish the gig and you're like, oh, let's get a round on the band, just that's completely up to you, as long as everyone's happy with it. But
yeah,
I wouldn't go nuts on it if you can afford it. It's a relative
just
thing.
In general, there is this kind of idea that we're gonna go on tour, let's get absolutely wasted. You're not
getting drunk and all that stuff.
Yeah, getting drunk and high and whatever. I mean, totally. Again, I guess it's up to you, but I think you're gonna find that you're gonna crash.
Yeah.
Pretty early.
Yeah, especially if you're
I don't
driving.
think this is written in, but this is I just sort of remembered this quite quickly, just from my own experience. Eat really healthily.
Yeah.
Don't do what me and Dario did, which was we were like, screw it, let's just eat really richly,
Yeah.
And just eat, drink, and be merry. It's not a good. It's not a good idea.
No.
Get your 5 a day. If you have time,
Not 5 burgers a day.
try and exercise. It's I sound. I don't want to sound like a killjoy, but being really healthy on tour is really important. More important than people realize.
Certainly.
Honestly, man,
it's tempting, especially the tour we did last year and the tour we would have done this year. We actually got a reminder on my calendar that we are gigging tonight. Apparently,
Yeah.
we were on tour just now. Do you see we're on tour just now?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, we're on tour just now, guys.
Yeah.
Recording this in the van.
We went to a lot of nice sort of north of Scotland resorts and lots of really nice like restaurants. Sort of.
Yeah.
And the food was excellent like throughout the whole tour.
Yeah.
It was a recurring theme.
Yeah,
the food was amazing. And how many burgers did we consume, honestly?
That was another thing I was going to say. Like, just in general, just don't have burger and chips every day. I mean, in retrospect, it looks like, oh, but you've got all your food groups in there, and I'm like, no, don't do it.
Yeah,
it's a bad idea.
It was funny at the time. Well,
it was very funny, but yeah, I'm thinking now, like, you know, especially I guess maybe if you're younger, you know. I'm 25 years old. I'm not even that old. But, like, you know, if you're like 18, 19 or something, I guess your stomach can take a little bit more abuse. But I've noticed as I've gotten older that I was like 24 when we went on that tour. So, and even then, I noticed that
struggling.
Yeah, my body just was struggling. So just take care of yourself, especially the older you get. Yeah, because there'll just be things you won't be able to. You don't
want to get ill on tour. You're moving around and things can't be cancelled. You can't get a dip.
I was very lucky that I had some medicine to deal with my issues, so that was good.
Yeah. So,
but we won't talk about that.
keep healthy. That's kind of the moral of the story.
Just keep healthy. Yeah.
You'll be sitting in cars a lot and going for walks and whatever.
In closed spaces. Yeah.
So we'll get on to the sort of more once you're at the venue and stuff. So the prep before you get there. So you're like I said, you're taking. So the posters I've sent out, you've had communication with the venues, everything's good to go. Depending on what you've released, whether it's an album or an EP or whatever, there's got to be something there because the purpose of going on a tour is to try and widen your audience. That's why you go on tour, is to get more people to hear about you. And the way you do that is you play to people and then as a lasting sort of impact, you can offer to sell them merch in the form of CDs or whatever it happens to be. So get your stuff sorted well in advance in case something goes wrong. So like get 100 CDs printed or 200 CDs printed or however many you think you're going to need to take with you so that you don't run out.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before. I don't think we need to say it again, but with regards to merch table, is merch table placement. We talked about this quite early on.
It's very important.
It's very, very important because it can make the difference between selling 5 CDs and 50 CDs by placing the table somewhere really bad.
Talk to the venue as well, actually. That was another thing.
That is,
I don't know if we talked to the venue about the best placement.
That is what they...
Still obviously have... Yeah.
That is what the talk I did with the... I went to see with the MU. That's what the guy talked about. He's like, always check with the venue if it's okay to have a merch table and where is the best place. And you can go yourself and... Maybe the venue are wrong. They might not necessarily always be correct. They might say, oh, the merch table works really well there. And you find that, well, it's kind of in the corner. No one really goes there. We've said this before. Stick your merch table where the highest flow of traffic is. So it's usually they have to walk past the table to get to somewhere. And like usually they exit. So they physically have to walk past you and look at the table. If you go to any gig, even like the Hydro in Glasgow, to get to your seat, you will walk past the merch table. There'll be more than one, and you'll see all the T-shirts and stuff all hanging up on the walls, and you can't help but see it when you walk past it, and it just triggers off in your mind. That probably makes a huge impact to their sales, and it will to yours as well.
Have clear price. I can't speak English. Have clear prices as well.
Yeah.
You know,
big bold writing.
So people already instantly say, "Oh, it's that much for a T-shirt, a CD, and that."
Yeah.
That's a pretty good deal. I'll get that.
Yep.
You know,
get your card reader sorted. Get that done.
Yeah.
Buy a card reader, because you'll turn down half of the people that come to the table. Oh, do you take card? No. Okay. Just get one. So we've talked about that before in plenty of episodes. So you've got that sorted. You're actually at the venue. Now, touring serves two purposes. I don't know if you probably would agree with this. I know you do. Purpose one, it's expanding your audience, your reach, and getting more people to know your band. And number two, primarily, it's a place where you can test ideas. So what I mean by that is twofold: musically and stage performance-ly.
Yeah.
So on the, we've talked a little bit about like broadening your horizons and getting more audience, but the other side, musically, you've got your set list and it's all prepared out and you play your songs. Something that you will notice is if you've only played maybe 10 gigs in your hometown, when you're playing every night the same songs over and over, you start changing things and remembering things differently and interacting in your band differently the more you play a thing over and over and over. And so if you take,
and you'll come up with
new stuff.
You'll come up with totally new arrangements on the fly as well. Like you'll play it and then you'll be like, oh, do you know what would have been cool if we did this and that? And then you do it in the next gig and you see if it works. And
it's a fantastic testing ground for new ideas, new album even. So say you're going out with an EP you released prior, or maybe you've just released it and you're touring this release, which is what most people do. So your big thing is like, we are your band name and we are selling your EP name, and you can buy a CD at the merch table and you can download it on Spotify, blah, blah, blah. It's there. But we're also playing other tunes which haven't been released yet. That is crucial, because if you're playing, say, 8 old songs or 5 old songs and you're playing 5 new songs that no one's ever heard, the touring time is like crucial time to work those songs out and get them played out. It's amazing how much you'll change if you've never played like you've written a new song, you've never played it before. When you start playing that song over and over and over, you'll notice things will change in it. You'll go, do we really need that extra bridge? Nah, cut it. And like, that verse, that could go on a little bit more. Things will get edited and tweaked and fine-tuned. And then after that tour, your 5 songs that were kind of scrappy and new will be super fine-tuned and really good. And you can see, like, real time, these guys like this song. When we cut that bridge last night, went straight to the solo, that was much better, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Right when you finish touring, you hit the recording studio and you get them recorded while they're still fresh and tight. That's like...
as long as there isn't a pandemic happening.
Well, yeah. But touring is great for that. It's putting your songs out into an environment, and then the sort of natural selection of touring or gigging every night selects all the best bits, and all the dross gets thrown to the side, and that's how you really fine tune your songs. That's how I've found, what happened with us anyway. That's definitely true. Mm-hmm. There were things that we were changing and adapting, and it's such a fun process. It's probably one of my favorite parts of touring is your first gig and your last gig are totally different, because by the time you get to the end, it's like everything feels really, really familiar and really good and tight and confident, and you don't feel like you're going to mess up at any moment. So that is one incentive to touring is just it's like extreme practice, and it's a good way to test your tunes so that the following year you can tour that album and then test new songs. It's a great process of the sort of write record tour thing.
Yeah.
I quite like that. So
for sure.
This brings me on to the next part. So maintain good connection with your audience throughout the whole evening. So depending on where you're playing, if it's kind of a more intimate setting, you can do this. If it's a sort of sit-downy thing, that's probably my favourite part. Overall, is the fact that people have come out to see you, which I think is pretty cool in and of itself. Actually speaking to people afterwards and saying, "What do you think?" And you'll get people coming up to you at the merch stand like, "That was really awesome. You guys are great." You know, all these compliments. I don't think you'll get folk coming up to say you're terrible. Usually those people just go home. But it's really cool. Like, be there to actually shake hands and like, thank you for coming to my gig. It's really cool. Standing at the door as they're all exiting.
Yeah, like during the break and then afterwards. Yeah.
It's really it makes it more memorable than just any other generic band that's like plays the set and then disappears to the green room and then doesn't see any of their audience. You've got to make an impact. You've got to get out there and say hello. Like, we are real people.
Yeah.
And
it's definitely easier when you're a smaller band.
Yeah.
I suppose that's why bigger bands have like VIP packages that have meet and greets.
That's exactly the same thing, except they can monetize it. You can't do that quite yet. There's no real. If you monetize that in your first tour, you're needing your head looked, because like who would want to pay £50 extra to meet and greet with your, I don't know, your brother or something, like your ultra fan, your mum. I went to a meet and greet with my son's band. There's probably some mums that would do that, to be fair. So it's just it's more approachable. It's more fun because you can you get compliments for things you don't even think about. Oh, we loved that story you told mid-set about the blah blah blah, and you just threw it in randomly, like one of your chats.
Yeah.
Like we've had that. Like there's just the chat in between. Like, oh, you get such good on stage chemistry, even when you're not playing. Like, just the chat was it was so funny. It was great. It's such an entertaining evening, and you're like, oh, I thought it was like really bad, and I thought it was just like stuttering away, and like just shows you that really makes an impact with people.
Sure. I suppose that I should say this. If you can, it was just something I was thinking about, and it's probably something I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Get like improv. Go to like a couple of like improv comedy classes. Because really, that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, like, bands are like, we are the jesters of our time, and I'm not saying that in like a derogatory way.
Yep.
I'm saying that in like a jester was like a really important part of like a medieval, court back in the day.
Yep.
And they weren't idiots. They were really, really clever, talented people.
Yeah.
Playing music and making jokes and entertaining and making satirical comments and things like that. We're basically doing the same thing. People are paying to see music, and if you can add a little bit of if you can add a little bit of comedy, or even like even be a little bit serious, that's cool too. But it's definitely something that I was sort of thinking about in the back of my head. I was quite lucky in that I did a little bit of I did quite a lot of acting and drama when I was at school, so
Yeah.
I've still retained some of the skills from that.
Yep.
But for sure, yeah, I'll go to.
It's
Go to something.
It's a
like
hard
that.
thing to plan. This is what I was going to say, because you can't always plan what you're going to say. I think sometimes it's better that you don't plan it and you just see what comes out. And eventually, like after a few nights of doing the same set, you'll find yourself gravitating to the same stories because they worked the first time.
Yeah, like a similar-ish script. That's kind of the way that I tackled it, is just in my head I had certain bullet points that I was going to, about certain sets, you know, I was just like, well, we could talk about that, and could talk about that here and here and here and here, and plan out when you're going to speak as well. Don't speak after every song.
No.
I like to speak every 2-3 songs maybe.
Yeah.
Sometimes just have like a bunch of songs running back to back. It can be really cool if you do that. It's almost like an extended like an extended set list, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. It's nice as well if you're touring yourself, you're not touring with any other bands, it's just you. You have free reign, you have loads of time to do stuff. You can take a big break in the middle, which I think we did. We would always have an intermission. And that's a great time to get off the stage, get down to into the audience, into the merch table, and just speak to people. It's amazing how many connections you'll make from that. Just people who are randomly in the audience going, "Oh, we really loved your band. Oh, we are doing an event next year. Blah blah blah. We'd love you to play." And if you were being one of those moody bands that go to the green room and just talk amongst their friends and go and, you know, mess about on their iPhone,
you're gonna miss out on that.
You're gonna miss out. It's all about. I hate using the term because it's horrible. Networking. It sounds so. Teamwork.
It's
networking. It's such a office term.
It is, for sure. Yeah, it's a very blue collar, I guess. Yeah.
But it's important. It's actually going and speaking to people. Make an effort. It's nice when people leave the venue and they go, "We really liked you. Let us know when you're playing again." And there's one way you can do that as well, which comes with touring, is get a mailing list. So sheets of paper usually. If you liked us, you can have written on it. If you liked us and you want to be kept up to date with where we're going, what we're doing, you can sign up to our mailing list. If your audience is older and they're not on social media, that's always a good one. But they have email at least. You can do that. You can even do it now. Email marketing is still the number one best way of marketing, other than word of mouth. It's more reliable than social media marketing. It's still great, and people should still be doing it. Especially bands, having 100 emails in your list saying, "Oh, hey guys, we're playing these venues over this coming month. If you're in this area, come see us." It's a little call to action. You're not necessarily asking them to buy this thing within the email chain. You're just saying, "We're playing. Like, here's a little update. Oh, we're in the studio just now. Here's a video on YouTube of us in the studio messing about. We're recording some new material." It's another layer of, "Hey, look, we still exist," kind of thing. Keeps you top of mind. And also, if you're doing things like Patreon, if you've got a mailing list of 100 people, you can send out, "Hey, if you really like us and you want to support us more, check out our Patreon. You can subscribe for £5 a month or whatever, and we'll give you regular updates or discounts for tickets." Or it's a good way of gathering emails or email addresses from people that, I mean, they give you their email address, so they must be interested in you. So it's not like spam. Plus, they can always opt out. You can always give them, like, if you don't want to hear from us, just check this wee box, unsubscribe, then we'll not send you another one. It's not It's not spam because we didn't steal their email. They actually gave it to us. So don't feel... I've heard this before from people like, oh, I don't know if I want to send an email out. It just feels spammy. I don't want to like annoy people. Look at it as they've given you your email address, their email address, so they must want to keep in contact. So the way I see it is keep sending out stuff, and if they don't like it, they'll tell you. It's the same with...
they'll just unsubscribe.
Yeah.
They won't get emails from you again.
It's the same with emailing venues back and forward. Don't email once and then, they didn't get back to me. I'll just not bother.
Follow it up.
No, keep following up. Like, keep emailing back until you get a yes or no. That is the 100% policy.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it just gets buried, Like, you have to remember that, venues are, regardless of size, will be getting a lot of emails.
Yeah.
And, it will, maybe they'll have seen it and they'll go, right, yeah, we should have a look at that, and it just gets forgotten about.
Yeah.
Not out of like indifference. It's just, it just happens.
Yeah. So the whole thing to take away from touring is there's that two things to think about. Is you're trying to gather new people who have never heard of you and turn them into fans. It's that whole cold traffic, warm traffic thing. You're taking cold traffic by playing to them, and you're warming them up with your sparkling personalities and your good music and turning them into fans. And you're also trialing and testing new music for potentially recording afterwards. Now, all of this works in a normal place where there's no pandemics. Obviously, no one is
in a normal world.
In a normal world.
In a normal world.
This isn't happening
where
right
there's
now.
No pandemics.
In 2020, this is going to be a really famous year where everything's shut down. But touring's going to come back. It's not going to be all shut down forever. So if you're listening to this in the future, this is like a little historic, like, this happened. Look at that. Historians will go, what are they talking about?
Certainly, I feel like, I think touring will come back on a smaller scale
to start with,
for sure. Things like I've spoken to some different people, and I don't like things like proper like big arena gigs and things like that. Probably won't be happening for a good while, But smaller tours, I could probably see that happening.
Yep. If you're a small band and you've got a few gigs under the belt and you've got a release, doing some small venues in some little rural places, that is doable. When lockdown gets a little bit lifted, if there's a little venue that only seats 50 and they can maintain social distancing and all that, you're not going to be selling out, arenas. You can probably do. You guys will probably be the first ones that can tour. All the festival goers and all the big, huge venues, they're the big guys, the big boys like Paul McCartney and The Who, they're going to struggle because they have to have packed out stadiums that are like 20, 30,000 people. But you playing your little pub gigs with 50 people in the audience, and that's what you want to be doing anyway, and that's probably going to be the first thing to be allowed. So it's not all that bad. It's gonna last forever. So this episode will still make sense in 5 years' time. Well, I hope it does.
I hope so.
Because music's really important, and you always preach this as you always see these things online where governments always prioritize sort of STEM field stuff over the arts, and I would say, and you would probably say as well, that the arts is probably equally
humanities
important.
Just in general.
So we can't go on forever without this stuff. So while you can release music under lockdown and do all that, we still need that live music aspect. That's what we talked about that with Graham. He's like the live music side of it. It's like your Spotify releases are only like 60% or 40% of the picture. The rest of it's when you actually go and see the band live. That's where you get the full picture. Yeah, just a thought. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to cover. Anything else I've missed?
I can't personally think of anything off the top of my head at the moment. I think we more or less touched on most of that. Yeah. On most things in this episode.
I think when things start to get back to normality.
We'll have a lot to talk about because we'll be experiencing things.
Yeah, totally. There's
hopefully on a very regular basis. So
yeah,
we'll have lots to talk about.
Cool. Obviously, there was a few things. There was a few things extra I saw here that we maybe could mention just in closing. Something to think about before actually deciding to book a venue is, because you're on tour, is accommodation provided versus do I have to find it on my own, and weighing up the pros and cons of that. That was one thing that I missed, but that's kind of a given. It's kind of a fine detail, which I think we'll talk about in detail at a later date once things are kind of getting back to normal. But that was the only thing that I missed out, because
I suppose the long and short of it is that some venues do have accommodation that they provide, others will not. So it's really good to find that out, and don't be too cheap when it comes to accommodation, because a good night's sleep is very important.
Yeah, that goes in the whole thing. The start being healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
No McDonald's for you. Okay.
No.
Cool. So I think that will wrap that up. I have an idea of what we're going to talk about next week, but I'm going to run it by you before I announce what it is. So
okay.
Just in case you're like, no, we're not doing that. What are you talking about? So
what's wrong with you?
Yeah, what is wrong with you? Anyway, it's call to action time. If you like what you're listening to, please leave a rating, a 5-star rating, and a review, and tell your pals. Give us a like on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to it, and
like it on everything.
Or dislike it if you don't like it. That also helps us, believe it or not.
Just do the thing.
Do the things. And if you have any podcast topics that you want us to cover, you can message us at our website, www.levelupyourband.com, and we will reply. For whatever reason, because we are getting up the Google SEO thing, the search engine, because we're becoming more sort of up there and we're releasing so much, I have managed to attract every scammer on the internet.
Yes.
I'm getting so much spam on the on the contact form on the website. It's hilarious. It's constant rubbish. I need to figure out a way how to filter all that out. But yeah, it's good. We're like, that's when you know you're doing well, is when you start to attract all the scammers. They see all your domains. Anyway, hope you're all doing well, and we'll see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.